retired for some time. Dr. Richard Wexler, who is the founder and CEO of Points of Life. He'll tell you all about it. Richard has 35 years of business experience, and after years in the legal field, he led multiple trust companies. He began working in the senior care industry after caring for 3 family members simultaneously.
Oh my God.
He has appeared on local and national television and radio discussing intelligent aging. I don't think that's aging intelligence, but intelligent aging. He has spoken to numerous organizations and businesses about all aspects of aging, has written many articles on the subject. He works and consults with elder care professionals across the country. Richard's a member of numerous senior roundtable groups. Previously, he held sales management positions in high technology, playing a role in helping Macrovision grow to more than $200 million in revenue. He has served on various boards of directors and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of California, Berkeley, and a law degree. Richard.
Thank you. So I thank you, and I thank you for inviting me, and we're going to make this interactive. Dave, who knows me, seen my presentations a few times. I'm a messenger with a tough subject, and that tough subject is aging. And Peter and I were talking about it. We can pretend like we're not and deal with it in more of a crisis state as we age. Or as I talk about, we can be somewhat intelligent. So 10 years ago, as Peter was saying, my wife and I were living the quote-unquote normal life, if one exists. We got married later. We had 2 small children that were under 12. And we had 4 parents that were 80-ish.
Louder, please.
4 parents that were 80-ish. And so I think we, like a lot of people, just figured one will get sick at a time. It won't be that difficult. We'll figure it out and we'll help them. Well, all of a sudden, in a matter of a couple months, we got 3 phone calls because 3 of them got extremely ill at the same time. You know, so that may be a little abnormal that you have 3 people in your life that are very ill like that. So we had to manage 2 pretty crazy careers, the 2 kids, the sports, the homework, the 3 parents, our marriage, the white picket fence, and we just about drowned. So it kind of put me on a mission to change things. So for the last 10 years, I've been blabbing about this subject. Someone asked me a couple days ago, how many people do you think you've talked to? And I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 over the last 10 years. A lot of groups like this, national calls, businesses. And you want to know the sad truth? Not much has changed in 10 years. Aging is a really difficult subject for people to talk about. I'm a messenger. I don't know how to make, I've been told by people, make your message happier. Talk about it, don't be so, what do? We age. I think you're the one, I think you said it, you're happy to be here, that you're here and having breakfast this morning. I mean, we're not 20 anymore. We age. We got 130 million people in this country 50 and older. Think about that. 130 million people 50 and older. 80 million is the baby boom generation that I'm smack in the middle of. The oldest boomers turned 70 this year. They were born in 1946. The youngest boomers turned 52 this year. You guys tell me, who wants to tell me what does that mean to have 80 million people between 52 and 70? Any thoughts on what that means? I'll pick on you. What does that mean to have that many people in that age group?
A lot of business.
A lot of business. Give me more.
Besides that, where I sit, which is with families talking about paying for care almost several times a week, that there needs to be a lot of planning to prepare for it. And that people just don't realize the cost. I don't know if you realize that the Supreme Court passed a law that they must pay in care workers for the time they sleep. And overnight, the cost of care went from maybe 8 to 10,000 to 18 to 20,000, right?
It's over, in the state of California, 24-hour care in the home, over 20,000. It's about 600 to 700 a day. And as Dave's talking about, as we factor in the $15 minimum wage, and as we factor, so what he was saying, so normally, a couple of years ago, mom needed care. So you'd have Jennifer taking care of her. And Jennifer was there 24 hours. And Jennifer got paid for the time she was awake. She didn't get paid by the time she slept. Now with these new laws, it's time and a half. So most in-home care companies that Dave works with that send someone in the home, it's split now between Jennifer and Grace. And I was in Sacramento a couple months ago for a huge conference on this. They're talking about the daily rate for 24-hour care in California, $1,000 a day. $365,000 a year. That's insane. So when I talk about this subject, I talk about it because the more intelligent we are about anything, in my mind, the better off we are. Peter and I were talking about, I'm a political science major from the University of California. I studied political science for 40 plus years. This is the most idiotic presidential race I've seen in my lifetime. There was no conversation about aging anywhere in the conversation or lack thereof. We were talking about it. It's almost as if it doesn't exist. How many of you have cared or paid for care for anyone in your family up until now? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to affect almost everyone in this room. The long-term care insurance industry uses a figure of about 70% of us will wind up needing care. That number is ridiculous. It's about 95% of us. Whether you're 85 years old and you trip and just bruise a shoulder, you're going to need some care. Whether you wind up with dementia, you're going to need care for a long time or someplace in between. So when I talk about this subject and the message is a couple things. 99% of the people in this country, and I've been talking to about 10,000, I got a pretty good viewpoint, have done nothing. And they're just going to deal with it like my wife and I when it happens. It almost destroyed our life. Yeah, most people don't have 3 at once. 1 at once is tough enough. But think about the numbers I'm talking about. So Dave works with a lot of in-home care companies. In-home care, they bring someone in the home to take care of mom or dad or Uncle Charlie or you or your spouse or whatever. In the home. And we'll talk about how you pay for it in a few minutes. The other option is, few options. One of the other options is you go out to one of the beautiful communities, the Brookdales, the Atrias. So 24-hour care, obviously you get that if you live in a Brookdale or an Atria or a small board of care, which is a small residential community. They may have 6 beds. It's a house, maybe in your neighborhood. The only way you can sometimes tell that it's a small assisted living is that there's a ramp in the front door for a wheelchair. In this area, they're going to start about $4,000 to $5,000 a month. You wind up in memory care in Brookdale or Atria, you're probably talking someplace in the neighborhood of $12,000 to $15,000 a month. So it's cheaper than being at home. But how many people have $12,000 or $15,000 lying around? And people go, oh, okay, I'll deal with that. And it'll be a limited amount of time. Well, the average person that winds up needing care needs it for more than 3 years. Do the math. Do the math. So he's taking equity, and you probably heard Dave talk, out of the home via a reverse mortgage to pay for this. But think about the numbers I'm talking about. think about what the plans were to use that equity as you move on and retire or leave the home to kids. And now, because there's no other source of revenue to pay for this care, that equity gets eaten up. I get calls once a week. My client, Mrs. Jones, is in Sunrise in Riverside, California. She's got 4 more months of income. What is she gonna do? And her bill every month is $7,500. What is she gonna do? What is she gonna do? And she's 95 years old. But she's in pretty good health. Part of what's made this difficult, we have any doctors in the room? Medical profession has done an awesome job. We pay up the you-know-what for pharmaceutical drugs, but those drugs are keeping us living that much longer. A lot of us are the same age. Years ago, mom and dad would move in. If they made it to about 75 and then passed away, that was about normal. Now, I just lost a client in January of this year, 117 years old. You can look him up on the internet, Mr. Hatch. He lived in San Leandro. He was being taken care of by an in-home care company plus his daughter. African-American gentleman, escaped the South, almost got hung a few times, wound up in San Leandro. So he's not becoming that abnormal. I'm in assisted livings every week. I'm meeting people that are unbelievably sharp, that are over 95 years of age. That's awesome. But you gotta pay for it. I made a prediction 5 years ago that in San Francisco, we would start seeing seniors in homeless camps. We are. You know, most people in San Francisco don't own a home where they can talk to Dave and do a reverse mortgage, they rent. And rents are going through the roof. So now you're 75 years old on a fixed income and you're trying to pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month for rent. You don't have it. Where are you gonna go? On the street. We're walking into this absolutely huge problem that I know is not fun to talk about. There's no conversation back in Washington, and I get asked why. And I've said this numerous times. The average person that makes it to Congress has done very well financially. So when something happens in their family, they self-insure. They pay for it out of their wallet. So they have this idiotic thought process that all of us can do the same thing at $5 or $10 or $15 or $20,000 a month. You tell me if I'm wrong. Have you heard any conversation in the last 3 years about the subject of aging at the Sacramento level or the Washington level? I've heard none. What do? We gotta talk about it. It ain't fun. Or we can just sit back, kind of like my wife and I, and just wait for it to happen. We're gonna have more personal bankruptcies in this country. We're gonna have more emotional breakdowns. This is a crisis that's coming upon us. And what I've done to try and help, Dave's part of my organization, I have a few hundred professionals that work with me throughout the United States. I've built a professional network of about 10,000 people. I've talked to about 10,000 people. Trying to do my little part in educating you guys to talk to your friends and talk to your relatives. Having a conversation about this within a family is unbelievably hard. Whether you're the 70-year-old trying to talk to your kids, or whether you're the kid trying to talk to your older relatives. Most people don't even know how to start the conversation. On my website, and you guys have it on the paper, on the bottom of it, we actually produced a document that helps you have the conversation. How do I start it? Whether I'm the 40-year-old going to mom or mom going to the 40-year-old, and then what do I talk about? The estate plan. Any estate planning attorneys in the audience? You got a couple choices. Do it, or the state of California will do it for you. They got a great plan. It's called probate. It's public, it's expensive, it's embarrassing, it can tear a family apart. That's their plan. if you ain't got one. And then if you have an update, I talk to people, well, you know, Tom died about 5 years ago, and the last time we looked at the estate plan was probably 1997. Excuse me? People die, people get born, people come out of relationships, people leave relationships, property comes into a family, property leaves a family. I'm an attorney, I don't currently practice, but update the estate plan. Otherwise, it'll take care of you in a manner you don't want it to take care of you. Cost of care. We've been talking about that. There's about a dozen different ways to pay for it. If you're going to stay home, and Dave can correct me, or if one spouse is home and one spouse moves to Brookdale, you can utilize the funds in the home. Both spouses leave or one spouse leaves. If there's a home, you can sell it and use that to pay for a large community outside. There's a wonderful organization that Dave's aware that I work with. I have a partnership with the United States Department of Labor. Why? They have one of the most unbelievable care programs in this country. If you or anyone you know work for some place like Lawrence Livermore Lab, Berkeley Lab, there are a few hundred labs like this around the country that are nuclear facilities. If you work there and you get ill, they will pay for all of your care, the government, United States Department of Labor. But nobody knows this program is out there, all of it. There's a fund that the German government has set up for survivors of the Holocaust. A lot of those survivors are around 90 years old now and still alive. They'll pay for their care. Because what's basically going to happen in a family, mom or dad gets sick, mom or dad is now 80, there are children, mom or dad haven't done anything to save for this, long-term care insurance is another option. They turn to their children and go, Johnny, Julie, can you help me? And where did Johnny and Julie don't live anywhere near mom and dad. So what does that mean in Johnny and Julie's life? Someone's going to quit a job and go move in with mom or dad? Okay, MetLife does a lot of studies on this. That's over $300,000 in income that Johnny or Julie will lose from quitting their job. It's a lot of income. Talk about it. Understand it's real. Understand we're probably all going to live a lot longer than the generation before us. Many of us will get into our 90s. Some of us may get to 100 plus. Where's that money going to come from? Financial planning is huge. There has to be enough money to pay for the roof over your head, some food for your belly, a new shirt once in a while, and then add care. It's really, really expensive. $1,000 a day. If you can't remember anything else I talked about, keep that figure in your mind. You worked for 30, 40 years. You built what you have. And again, I'm not trying to be negative. I don't know how else to communicate this. It's either get ahead of it or take those 30 or 40 years of work and kiss it goodbye. Give me questions. You guys, we have about 5 minutes left. Give me questions. I mean, I know this can be a depressing subject at 8:25 in the morning. Yes, sir, I'll come to you.
What have you and your wife done to prepare for this?
What have we done? So it changed our lives, and we had the 3 parents. They've since passed. I'm from here. My mom lives over here. She's 93 and not doing well. So we've done a lot more planning, a lot more conversation with her, a lot more saving. She has a long-term care insurance policy that will take care of care. We've talked about all those things. Updated estate plan, looked at the financial plan, looked at long-term care insurance, looked at the options for care for her and ourselves. I'm 63, and ourselves. I have pretty severe arthritis. It'll affect us at some point. We've gotten ahead of all those issues, and we talk about it. Does that help? Yes.
The Institute for Medicine in Washington does a lot to
$5, Jim.
get
$5.
does a lot to get the the country aware of medical problems and get dialogues going that are often under the surface, but they occur in Washington as well as elsewhere. Has this subject, have you brought this up to the Institute of Medicine as something they should look into or write a paper about?
I haven't. I would love to get a connection to them. Dave's aware of this. What we've been trying to do, we assimilate this to smoking. Some of you in the room may smoke. But if you've watched all of the commercials, the service ads for the last 20 years about smoking, the woman smoking a cigarette through her tracheotomy,
Oh, yeah.
many people have decided, not the best thing to do. We need to have that from a national standpoint. Brookdale does all these beautiful commercials. Come live with us. We'll take care of you. We're gorgeous. We're not going to tell you what we cost, but come live with us. We need to have an open dialogue through companies like that on a national basis. We do that, me and the group that I work with, on a smaller basis, but it's something we have to do on a national basis because it's not going to get any better soon, as we all age. Two questions.
But even in these homes, like Brookdale and stuff like that, versus home care, I mean, I have a mother-in-law right now that we have daycare for, or care, and they're with her all the time, at the bedside. These other places, which I've had my mother in, and they're there, right? But they check on them during the meal period, stuff like that, but they just let them sit in bed or let them sit in a wheelchair. They're not physically there, reading to them, keeping their minds active and stuff like that. They're in a room, they pass by them.
Yes.
They're not sitting there like you do when you have somebody in their own home, sitting at their bedside. What do you want to do? I mean, to me, that's a farce where you say, here is a home, where they have 24-hour care. They don't. They're in a room someplace, and if they can push a button, if they need something to change their diapers.
So a story about that.
They can't.
So my father-in-law,
They can't.
one of the happiest days was my father-in-law wasn't in Mountain View. He actually came and moved with us into our house in Danville. We had a big enough home. But a month into it, realized we couldn't be his 24-hour nurse, picking him up off the floor at 3 o'clock in the morning when he's stark naked. We moved him to a large location like that. Within a month, we moved him out because exactly what you said. He met the people next door, a couple, liked them and wanted to eat with them. But every time he would try to get transportation because he was in a wheelchair, by the time he got the transportation, they had gone downstairs, eaten, and come back to their room, and he missed them. Yes, so a lot of times what happens is you move to a lovely community, this happens a lot, then you supplement that with home care coming in the community. So you're paying
Double.
$5,000 or $6,000 to home care, $10,000 to the community, and you're paying two bills.
Right.
Because that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So it's something, as I'm wrapping this up, and we'll get to one more question, it's something you really want to talk about. There are placement people that we work with, Dave knows some of them, they charge you nothing. They know every community around here. If you want to make a move to a community, they're like a real estate agent. They'll help you find it, they'll get you moved in, they get paid by the community, they don't charge you a cent, but they know everyone, and they know which ones are good and which ones aren't. Question?
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
In March, my mother-in-law, who was in a Lifetime Community Center down in Carlsbad, was told she had to leave because she had dementia, even though she was promised lifetime care. So for the last 4 months, we have looked at about 20, 30 places here in the Bay Area, 20, 30 places in the San Diego area, just to find a place to move her from a $7,500 a month, plus $6,000 for companion care for 8 hours.
Well, sure.
So then we finally found a place, a bed and board in Carlsbad,
I moved her in there.
which is $5,000 a month, and it's wonderful. So in this area, it goes from $3,200 to $18,000 a month for a facility,
Yeah.
$3,200 for a bed and board, which is not the best in the world.
But they can be very nice because the people, they're not all great, but the people, they're nice, they're there 24 hours. It's a small 5-6 bed home. Go
Right,
ahead.
and 80% of the places are bed and board. They're not the big places.
Right.
So if you want to put your folks or whoever in a good place, look at bed and board now because there are no openings. So prepare for the openings as they're coming if you think somebody's going to need help, and stay away from the big places because even the one that my mother-in-law was in, they just abandoned her for like 8 hours a day.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Just comment or question?
I want to make a comment. Prior to the recession, seniors were in pretty good shape. The recession took a lot of people's money, they lost it. And prior to the recession, home equity was never talked about being used in a retirement plan to prepare for care like this. And that all changed over the last 5 to 7 years. And I don't care if you talk to me or you talk to another reverse mortgage professional, you need to find out how to bring home equity into your retirement plan. Because there are ways that you can bring it in and put it into the line of credit where you can get a growth rate on your home equity that will equal between 5 and 6.5%, and that's guaranteed. And that's how you build. You put that in at 62, and by the time you're 82, you've got $1 million in your bag. And it's an unknown way of doing it. It is very inexpensive. It's guaranteed. And talk to somebody who does reverse mortgages about how to bring home equity into your plan. It's going to be the most important thing you do.
If I could add one last piece to that, talk to your children.
Yes.
If you're the 70-year-old doing that, or the 62-year-old doing that, talk to your children. Let them understand what you're doing, how it's going to work, have them talk with the professional as well. I've seen so many family fights. You're not taking that money. That's my estate. It happens a lot. Talk about it ahead of time. Be intelligent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.